I was in Arizona, I had my gun on me and no one would know. So you really got to figure out a way to balance this with your life. I didn't get into any legal stuff because everyone is from different states and there's different laws. Some places, like Arizona, if someone breaks in my house, castle doctrine, eminent domain. Someone breaks in my house, I'm in fear of my safety, I can defend myself. Other places, we used to do this as a demo in our CCW class. Someone broke into a house, the guy was in his upstairs and he ran into his basement with the gun. The guy chased him downstairs into the basement. He ended up shooting the guy. The guy was coming after him to fuck him up, to maybe kill him. He shot the guy. Well, then later, the guy who did the shooting, who was the homeowner, got in trouble because he didn't try to hop out the basement window and try to escape. So to me, that's fucking insane. That was one of the reasons I moved away from California too, because it's just the laws. I can't defend myself, that's insane. But I always recommend to whatever state you guys are in, either they have a book called the Arizona Gun Owner's Guide, and every year they update it, but this guy started writing the book for other places too. So you might be able to buy his book and find the laws on lethal force. Otherwise, I'd try to go to the gun range and see if they have any guys there, maybe the CCW instructors, law enforcement guys there, or a lot of times they have lawyers who help teach the classes, and then you can get a lawyer who's pro-gun who can then explain this stuff. Because the shit I've heard, people have asked me, well, what about this? What should I do in this situation? I'm like, are you in fear of your safety? Yes. And I'd shoot. That's really all it comes down to in Arizona. So everyone's different. Obviously can't talk liability-wise, so I always say just be careful. And even when I did my CCW instructor course, it was taught through DPS, which is the state police in Arizona, and the head dude was running it, who's a cop. He said, even you guys here, if you guys ever get in a lethal force encounter and you end up having to use it, don't say anything. Don't even say anything, because anything you say can and will be used against you. He goes, even if it was a completely justified shoot, you could say something like, oh my God, I can't believe I shot him like 15 times. Or like he kept moving, I kept shooting him, and I couldn't believe these hollow points, these new ones I got, really fucking blew a hole in his head. It was crazy. Because you just fucking are in this crazy life or death situation. Adrenaline's pumping, you're not thinking straight. Maybe something like that comes out, he writes it in the report. Well, you're totally justified in that shoot. But later, the civil case, his family is like, why'd you have to kill my baby? And end up suing you later. And then he had cop killer bullets or human killer bullets or any of that stuff in it too. So shut up. I would always say too, like, I just had a life and death situation. I need to get checked out. I need to make sure I'm okay. And then talk to a lawyer, protect yourself, which I think we were talking a little bit legal stuff before. There's a really good video on YouTube where it's a college professor of law, and he gets on stage and does like a whole little 30-minute speech where he goes down all these laws of things that could be used against you. You imported a fish from another country. Well, part of the Constitution, part of all these amendments and everything is we honor laws of other lands. Well, that having that law as a fish is a felony, have this fish because it's like a protected fish. Well, now you can be charged with that in America, and it's this whole crazy thing. And right after him, he goes, okay, now there's a detective, a homicide detective. He gets on stage, he's like, let's see his point. And he gets up there and he goes, yeah, don't say anything. Because anything we can get against you is going to be used against you. He goes, even if you didn't do the shooting, there's cases of this where the guy, they go, oh, so-and-so got killed, they think he did it. And he's like, no, I was at my mom's house that whole time. He's like, well, it's your mom, that's a bad alibi, so they throw that out the window. And then he goes, during the statement, they go, well, I didn't kill him, I'm glad he's dead, but I didn't fucking kill the guy. So then later in court, they go, didn't you say that you're glad he's dead? And they can use that against you. You guys ever watch the show The Wire? Yes, that's one of the most amazing TV shows of all time. It was on HBO a while ago. Awesome. Very accurate with the law enforcement stuff. And there's a lot of scenes where they're trying to get the drug dealers there. They lie to them, they flip. Cops are allowed to lie to you about stuff too. So they lie, they try to get the guys to flip, but a lot of times we shut up. Especially, and I'm not saying do stuff illegal and then lie to the cops or whatever, but I'm saying if you're doing something like this, I just defended myself, I had to use a gun on someone. 2 minutes later, I don't want to start blabbing and talking about all this stuff. All right, 3 things I want to talk about for follow-up reading, and then we're going to get into Q&A. So one thing I want to get into, and I didn't cover it here at all, but it's the OODA cycle. It's called the OODA loop. It was written by Colonel John Boyd, who people consider the best military strategist of all time, but a lot of people don't even know who he is. So I recommend reading as much as you can about this guy. It's fucking awesome. He went to the Air Force Top Gun School. I think the Top Gun School is like the Navy, and he went to the Air Force one, and it's a huge deal to be invited to go there. It's a huge deal to fucking graduate. And if you ever get invited back later to teach, that's insane. Well, he went through it, graduated, they asked him to stay and keep teaching. They used to call him 40-second Boyd. Within 40 seconds, he would let someone get on his 6, and he would flip things around and always get behind them. He actually came up with a mathematical equation to show why the MiGs were smoking our F-14s, which is the Top Gun plane where the wings moved. So stupid. It's like get one plane to do a couple things shitty instead of one plane to do one thing well. He actually, without a lot of people knowing, developed the F-15, which then became on to the 16 and the 18, which is the baddest shit out there. And his buddies that worked with him developed the A-10 Warthog, if you know about that, which is like the best ground support airplane there is. But a lot of people have never even heard of him. During the first Desert Storm, too, he was an advisor. It's amazing stuff. OODA cycle. It's a thought process loop. Observe, orientate, decide, action. Whoever goes through that thought process loop first generally wins the engagement. And the whole time you're gathering information and updating your choices. And if you're already cycling through this and someone else is reacting, you guys have heard actions faster than reaction. This is the better breakdown. I got really into this stuff, and that's why when I got into pickup, I picked things up so fast and so good because I already knew about stuff like this. OODA loop, just Google that. And you can also, I have a forum, my website's bravopua.com, but I have a free forum. And I just added a section a little bit ago called The Armory, where we're talking about some guns and stuff. But it's like an off topic. A lot of my guys are ex-military guys and stuff, so we talk about guns and gear and stuff. But OODA loop, that's something I talk about. Just Google that phrase, read about it on Wikipedia, it's fucking awesome. On Combat, that's a book I recommend you guys read. It was written by Colonel Grossman, who also had On Killing, On Combat. Actually, On Combat and On Killing, those are good books. But he has this great post, and a couple people, we already talked about it. There's this great breakdown. I posted it in the Armory section of my site, where it's basically there's 3 types of people in the world. Sheep, wolves. Wolves are the bad guys. Sheep, they're the civilians. Most of the people just, they don't care about anything. They don't worry about anything, and just hopefully no one comes and attacks them. And then there's sheepdogs, which are usually military, law enforcement, the people who step up and will protect the sheep from the wolves that they need to. Great little breakdown because it talks about how the sheep, if the wolves haven't been around for a while, the sheep start looking at the sheepdogs and they don't like them because it reminds them that there's wolves out there. And the sheepdogs kind of look like a wolf. They have fangs, they kind of look like them. But when a wolf wants to attack a group of sheep, it just takes one sheepdog to scare them off. So reading that, I say that's something every man needs to read and understand where you fall out in that category. And I'm not saying one's wrong and one's right. Well, being a wolf is wrong, but I'm not saying being a sheep is necessarily wrong, but it's not for me. Also, Gates of Fire. That's just like one of my all-time favorite books. And I think every man should read that. It's basically like the Battle of Thermopylae, the 300 and all that. So I wanted to get to Q&A. I saw guys like earlier raise their hands, and we're talking about some stuff. But I'm sure you guys have either had gun questions, things you've always thought about, any myths you guys want me to dispel, anything you guys want to cover, go for it, and let's get the microphone ready, whoever has questions. So who's up first? Red shirt.
What would you say is
Wait for Mike.
What would you say is the most practical martial art to take up if you're going to take one up?
What's the most practical martial art? I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. One of my friends I taught with, he's in Afghanistan. He's overseas right now. He was a red sash in Kung Fu. He was a black belt in Kempo. He's a Silat instructor, which does karambit stuff, Indonesian martial art. He was a Kali instructor, too, which is the Filipino shit I was talking about earlier. He became a cop, and he couldn't get almost any of it to work on resisting opponents. Any of it. He started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Carlson Gracie side. He got his blue belt, and he said after he got his blue belt, all of a sudden, all the other shit he started learning all those years, he was now able to do. The problem is most martial arts don't train realistically, and if there's not potential for you getting hurt, you're not trained hard enough, and it's a waste of time. So most schools, they train at like 5 or 10%. Like when I did Aikido Jiu-Jitsu, it was like, okay, grab the head, we sweep them, and we throw them, and that's a neck break. I can never fucking practice that move, ever. So in the heat of the battle, you don't rise to the occasion. You default to your training. So if you train here, that's all you're going to be able to bring. If you train here, which is what I love about jiu-jitsu because you do an arm lock, tap, that's it. Well, if I need to, broken. Chokehold, tap, okay, he's out. If I need to, I hold on for a couple more seconds, he's unconscious. So the training is so close to real life. And then when they did the old UFCs, jiu-jitsu destroyed everyone else. But it seems like a lot of guys who are in like Kung Fu and Taekwondo and all that stuff, they're trying to like come back and go, oh, well, MMA is like a sport. No, if I was in a bar fight with someone, I'd rather have Randy Couture or Anderson Silva in my corner than some old, fat, Elvis-looking dude who does, like, kicks boards and shit. So, anyways, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if you want to get more serious in it, boxing, kickboxing, do some gun training. And then I do some edge weapon, which is Kali. And I don't like a lot of the martial arts. Most of the ones that try to jam it all together, like the combative stuff, World War II combatives are all that, even Krav Maga. A lot of the stuff I've seen, they try to cram it all together, and then they do it all poorly.
Right.
So I'd rather do one thing and get good at it, and then supplement to it later. And also, too, we talked about, too, because you're taller, I'd go boxing, kickboxing for some reach and length for you.
And as far as like, if you're gonna look for a good knife, what kind of investment should you be making into that?
Good knives. Benchmade's a good brand. Spyderco's a good brand. Columbia River's an okay one. This is a Blade Tech. It's made by 511 now, which makes all those cargo pants that all like those military guys and stuff wear. Microtech I like. I'm a big fan of Strider knives. That's the one I had yesterday. That was like a $400 folder. But Benchmade Spyderco's, you can get those for like 50, 60 bucks. But you want to think about it. Is it a tool that you're going to be cutting boxes open? I'm probably not going to be cutting rope and shit with this. It's mostly a self-defense one. And I also like this too because folders aren't that great because you have to open them. And under stress, I'm going to have to pop this open. It's kind of hard to do. But I like this because I can pull it out. There's basically like a brass knuckle. If I get hit and my hand loosens up, that necessarily doesn't drop out of my hand.